Good morning. I'm Ashley Wing. I work at Re-flow, and during my 6 years I've helped support, train and onboard many businesses across highways. And these are businesses that have been looking to either make the change from paper to digital or refine their existing processes.
Hi, I'm Julie Davidson. I'm head of QC at Joinline, and as you can see, I'm still a little bit paper as opposed to digital. But whilst many of you here will know Joinline for our line marking division, and that's obviously why we're here today, you may not be familiar with the fact that we also undertake a large amount of civil engineering, forestry works, airfield maintenance, for example. And it was really important to us that we had standardised systems across not only our operational bases, but all of the trades in which we work. So that's why we've been working really hard over the last 18 months, switching all of our paper-based systems right across our business to go digital. And we hope that we're going to transform our work processes and help modernise our business with the use of the digital field management platform that we've brought in. We are going to be pushing go live across the whole business any week now, which is really exciting. And Ash was therefore kind enough to invite me to just feed into his presentation and share with you some of the reasons that made Joinline take the plunge and go digital right across the business.
Thank you, Jules. So on the screen, you can see a digital implementation checklist. And this is something we've put on the tables, so you should all see those on the tables now. And it's basically just something to take away. It's a practical framework you can take away when you're looking at your current digital systems, or if you're looking to implement from paper going into digital. Essentially, you can take that to any field operations systems provider, and it just creates that little bit more clarity and communication. We see a lot of the times where people just go in to put a system in place without any thought of what success looks like, and that document will help you manage that process. So why go digital with field operations? A field management system gives you full visibility over your operations, and it does this by connecting office teams with field workers in real time. It closes gaps in communication, and it enables the teams to remain compliant. And it does this through an easy-to-use app with a back-end dashboard that connects to the office, accessed through a browser. These systems provide tools such as automating workflows, managing assets, jobs, tasks, location tracking of staff, and also assets. And it's through these tools it can reduce inefficiencies, errors, environmental impact, and giving time back ultimately to the teams within the business. There are 4 areas that we see when we're dealing with businesses across highways with that fear of taking the next step. And one of the things we see quite often is the sunk cost fallacy. So there may be big systems already in place within the business, and money has been spent on that system, and then they have to spend more money to fix that system. Then there's more development needed, and the cycle goes on. So we've come into some of these businesses as part of that process to analyse, review, is it actually worth continuing with that or replace it with another solution? But really there are 4 key areas that we see most common, which is the first one, the uncertainty of outcomes. So not really knowing what the process looks like or what success looks like as part of that, or even really understanding what the full breadth of what field operations systems can offer. The next one is also disruptions to operations. You're busy with your day-to-day, and all of a sudden you've got this new system that you're bringing into play. And again, what does that look like? Is it easy enough to be integrated into the current processes? And how does that phasing in even look to the business? The next part is migration of data. what data are we going to be putting into this new system? How are we going to gather that? How does it look and how long will it take? Well, these 3 points can mostly be covered through discovery with your provider, and again, that implementation checklist will help communicate that clearly. But the 4th one is learning curve. So this really depends on the software you decide to use for your business. How simple is that software really to use, and what kind of support are you going to be getting from your provider? Software needs to be intuitive for teams. It needs that so they can just get the job done. But good support will be absolutely essential during the early phase of this implementation process. And if that support team and the PMs from that organisation understand your industry or processes, it just smooths out that whole initial phase and that process. Operation systems also need to be flexible enough to meet the requirements of all businesses. And I've worked with quite a few line marking companies in training, etc. And you all do similar things, but you all definitely don't work the same way. So these systems must have that ability of tolerance within them to allow configuration of terminology, additional fields within forms that you might be using out in the field to collect these essential data points and evidence the data you need. It also needs to be flexible enough to connect to external systems outside the ecosystem of a field management solution, connecting to financial systems, connecting to vehicle tracking systems, permit solutions, data, financial software, etc. So a good API is part of that package. It's essential if you're, especially for large organisations looking to connect to these systems. Digital solutions, new or whether you're refining, should ultimately enable your operations to be more compliant, safer, and efficient. This is the data that we've pulled from our own client base, and this is aggregated from different highways companies across the sector, so not just line marking, but it includes TM and also servicing. It also includes different entry points at which they come in, whether they come in from paper going to digital, or whether they're using some digital solutions, things like Excel, Dropbox, WhatsApp, but also if they're even using completely other digital solutions where they've just replaced them. And this is the data that we've got from that. But it's not just about me talking about stats. I wanted to show you some existing organisations that have embraced field management as part of their day-to-day and their thoughts on how it's enabled them to take advantage and the tools that they've used.
One of the things that we've had with the moving into the digitisation, any incidents that happen out on site can be reported back to us very easily, very quickly, especially with photographic evidence, GPS timestamps, the sort of things that you can't get from paper.
4 years ago, we looked at how we were going to digitise our operations. We have colleagues that work across GB that are in locations that aren't close to some of our operations. So the time taken for information to flow back to our central offices, there's been a massive benefit. We can deal with these issues now in real time.
When we're out on site, we can carry out specific toolbox talks for the right system or equipment that we're using. Through that platform, they can sign off on those sheets to say, which individual has had that training. That then gets logged into their training records.
I'll be overseeing what the operatives are doing on site, whether that be compliance tasks such as risk assessment sign-offs or method statement sign-offs, many different things that I'm looking at, and it's just easy to see all the data in one place.
All of our stuff was on paper, our daily timesheets, our plant maintenance checks, our van maintenance checks. The timesheets at the time were done weekly, so it would mean that we would have to travel into the office to submit them. Now it's completely eliminated. The guys are getting stuff instantly instead of relying on us to go to the office, print it out, and then bring it back out to site. It's so much easier now.
It is saving us a lot of time, a lot of money, and it's keeping our vehicles on the road. It's reducing downtime. We're meeting compliance by putting in the vehicle defect checks.
It makes management's life a lot easier. It also helps the guys. It keeps everybody safe, and the communication process is so much more fluid, particularly with our guys working remotely.
That process has enabled the management to be far more robust, and it completes the whole circle of safe method of working.
One of the key attributes to any field management system is the ability to manage compliance. But before discussing that further, I'm going to hand you over to Jules, who will talk about some of the statistical data.
So a few years ago, the Get It Right Institute, which you might have heard of, known as Gearing, they undertook some research. It was a while back, so I imagine the figures are probably worse now if they did it again. But they estimated that when they took into account both the direct and indirect cost of error within the UK construction industry, they put a figure on it of the cost probably being somewhere in the region of 10 to 25 billion pounds every year. I mean, that's just eye-watering. We're in that industry and we know how tight margins are, and anything that our business can do to reduce those remedial costs or cost of error were really welcomed. We felt that bringing a digital field management system in to Joinline would help us to really understand those exact areas where we can best drive our compliance efforts and direct them. So the data that's captured by our digital field management system will allow us to undertake that robust data analysis, and it makes it easier for QC teams such as mine to quickly identify those patterns that might signal early compliance issues before they escalate. And the real-time element of that data means that the people in our teams, they know straight away when those interventions are looking like they're needed. There's less delay, it's less lag, and it significantly reduces the likelihood of non-compliance. But as well as just the regular compliance and cost of error issues, the advantage of having all of our audit, safety and operational data centralised in just one place means that our managers can adjust efficient allocations of resources immediately and really help to lower that risk of poor quality outcomes and just enhance overall business performance.
So, solutions that close gaps around compliance, and security is one of the big concerns around compliance, especially in larger organisations. So a good, secure operations platform that provides security through MFA, single sign-on, and ensuring that the data is processed, stored within the EU. Processes around compliance should enable businesses to hit their RSO goals, document versioning, communication updates that are sent immediately to teams in real time. Day to day, with a field management solution, you'll be able to monitor and record dates, staff, times, location, render full PDF reports on submission of those documents that can go directly to managers or to your clients. Powerful forms that can actually pull in data from record sets from the dashboard, such as vehicles. So selecting that vehicle and having to enter all the details, it can pull the full information directly into it, saving time. The ability to scan QR codes from any of your items, capture photos, log check-ins, any data point that's required for evidence, and all the processes around that in detail can be captured. Simple formed interfaces, such as document sign-offs, allowing location tagging and alerts, triggers, unlocking next steps, activating automations, again, closing gaps around compliance. And to do this, to be able to complete these forms, even if you don't have a signal, ensuring that the work can get done. The main takeaway from all of this is that all communications through forms, all the steps that have been taken on the job are fully auditable and in one place. Safety is also improved with the field management solution, and it does this through, again, real-time data capture, workflows, instant reporting, reducing human error. But again, I'm going to hand you back to Jules, who will highlight some of the statistical data.
As every one of us sitting in this room knows, we work in an extremely high-risk industry, and Greg's earlier presentation, brings it home, the importance of the fact that we still need to push this and develop it. In the year 23-24, 138 people were killed across Great Britain in the course of their work. They got up one morning, they went to work, and they didn't come home. The biggest sector that feeds in to that number is construction. We're in that industry. 51 deaths from our industry. It's the industry that we work in that has the highest number of workplace fatalities. Many of you will already know the concept known as the Swiss cheese theory of accident causation. For those of you that don't know it, it's actually a really insightful way to understand how accidents happen. So I want you to imagine that you've got a slice of Swiss cheese, the type of holes in it. Now imagine that each of these slices of cheese represents a layer of safety or protection in your system. That might be training, it might be PPE, it might be human judgment, it could be your equipment checks, whatever it might be, there's layers. The more layers you put in, the better. So on its own, each layer of protection is fairly solid. You might get away with it, you might not. But each one does have its own holes, and that's where things might fail, where vulnerabilities exist in your systems. Now, accidents don't usually happen because just one layer fails. They happen when the holes in these align. They're a combination of failures that when they line up, they create the perfect environment for an accident. And whilst the business that I work in, Jointline, we've used automated near-miss app reporting for a number of years, we felt that transitioning to full digital field management across our entire business for every trade that we deliver really helped us to place a lot more layers in our systems, especially at the front end of our work delivery and helping us to reduce the risk of an accident. So I'm going to give you an example. We all know the issues that this industry has around compliance with the Working Time Directive. It's normalised that our teams work long hours and overtime. Some of our teams love to pick up as much overtime as possible to get that extra money. And when we are under pressure from clients to complete a job within a set TM window, for example, do managers using a paper system, can you put your hand on your heart and really say you've gone away and checked how many hours that crew's worked in the last week, the last however long? Have you checked that the night shift regulations were there, the daytime shifts were? You've done all those calculations? I probably propose that it's harder to do. Now, some of you might be, but not all of you are, and it's not easy. And as you saw from the previous slide, HSE shows that 20% of accidents on major roads have been linked to fatigue. A digital system can provide automatic flags, for example, if someone's over their working time directive hours. You can't program them. Or even if you can, you're getting a big red alarm telling you this person is over the hours. So if you do go and program them, that's a conscious, deliberate disregard for the law. You have to consciously say, I'm going to put my site team in danger for fatigue. You'd have to manually override it. It allows us to ensure that managers, if they're new to a department, they can't schedule the wrong person for the wrong type of work. For example, they need to hold ORAS if they're going to do certain types of work. So it gives that qualification safeguard. And going away from paper, it helps us to just reduce that human error, that risk. It bolsters our compliance and it lowers the chances of these points of failure lining up because there's more layers. It shrinks the holes, it adds in those safeguards, and it just helps to protect our business and the people that work in it.
Again, the benefit from going to a digital system is enabling prevention. Again, touching on some of the points Jules was talking about, scheduling by qualification and position, ensuring the right staff with the right skills are allocated to sites, and those people aren't on certain sites without the correct certificates or skill sets. Toolbox talks processes, inform and communicate to teams through video URLs and documents embedded directly into the sign-off form. And once they sign off that form, you then have a record they have acknowledged and understood the topics presented. Fatigue, Jules touched on fatigue there, so it's another preventative measure within the system, systems that can understand shift frequency, position, where ops teams may require more rest, again aligning with the working time directive. Access to PPE requests with issued gear, fully tracked and recorded. Maintenance checks for equipment, plant and vehicles. Gap-free workflows where equipment checks communicate in real time, any issues identified. Interacting live with the schedule as it happens. For example, it can actually automate the process of removing that vehicle if it's scheduled for the next day and replace it with a near vehicle that's very similar for you. Or you could carve a different pathway where it just notifies people through email notifications or text messages to actually schedule that vehicle. Dynamic forms, so for risk assessments, being able to adjust the hazard types and using formulas to calculate the risk of that. Again, the risk rating, depending on that, could trigger more notifications, put jobs on hold, and inform. A digital system should be intuitive, flexible, and have the power to build, automate, and record the data you require. It leads to higher adoption rates in the field and it reduces barriers around using the tools just to get the job done. I'd like to thank Julie for coming on the stage with me today. And I'd like to thank you all for your time listening to me waffle on about digital. Thank you.